Uh, my presentation on Apple Incorporated. So, to begin, we have their mission statement, their company size, and just some facts about them and things that they promote. So, their mission statements are on their website, and you can find many quotes from people that work there, and especially from their CEO, Tim Cook. Here we have one. We believe that business, at its best, serves the public good, empowers people around the world, and binds us together as never before. Something that they very much promote is helping the people, such as with education for their workers, having more accessibility options like within their products and ways that you can use them, helping the environment. They often will invest money into helping like other individual people in communities do things. It is probably to help make them look good realistically. However, it is still an action that they take that is beneficial to the people. So it is a good thing. And Apple is very much focused on the supply chain and innovation and trying to make things even more smooth. And they have about 80,000 employees in the US alone and about double that worldwide. And in 2025, they made about 14, or not 14, but $416 billion, which is a lot. And that was the entire year, not just in the fourth quarter. So, in terms of some of their strengths and weaknesses, the opportunities and threats. So for strengths, they're a very recognizable brand. All their products are very connected, which is good if you own their products already. They For them, they are very profitable. They're very popular and people continuously buy their products. They're known as someone who is innovative with the AirPods as an example. Bluetooth earbuds weren't very common whenever those were released. I don't, they weren't the exact first Bluetooth earbuds to ever be released, but they were the first Bluetooth earbuds that anyone had heard of. Like if you ask most people based on advertising and in research, they were not popular before Apple released their AirPods. And only then did they get popularized, and only then did other companies also start making Bluetooth earbuds, such as with Samsung's Bluetooth earbuds or Raycon's Bluetooth earbuds. And they also use their innovation as something that they promote about themselves, which is very much a strength for them because people want innovative products. However, they're expensive. They're very expensive. And that's one of the biggest cons that you see people talk about with them is like the iPhone's $1,000+, the MacBook is $1,500, the new iPad's like $800. They are very expensive. It's how they make their money. It's how they probably stay innovative as well and put so much money into other things. But they still cost a lot of money. They also, not a lot of their supplies are fully spread out worldwide. They are still very centralized in China and Taiwan and more of the Asian countries that a lot of manufacturing plants are. However, that does cause problems with the geopolitical state of things. However, they still offer new services frequently. They still expand their product line. They're developing their own Apple AI. They're doing many things to help increase their opportunities. There's a lot of competition though, as the smartphone market is something that can continuously to grow and it is constantly being developed. There's constant new innovations from Apple and other companies because people are trying to make the best phone and make it for a good enough price that people will buy it. There are many possible threats that Apple can face, such as them not making their AI fast enough. Many companies have already developed an AI and even a company specific AI to go with their products, such as the Google AI, which has become very popular. Whenever you go to the Google search engine, they'll automatically have an AI for you. Um, However, Apple has not fully released their Apple Intelligence, and they also are not as compatible with other AI. And that is something that could affect their company. Another thing that can affect them is the regulations that are making them have to be more open with their products and have a more open ecosystem and allow them to work with other companies' products, such as with their AirPods. The AirPods and Apple Watches simply do not work as well with other products as they do the Apple. They lose features and they lose core features. And for this reason, the Department of Justice here in America was suing them for being too monopolistic for doing that. So it is something that they're having to take into account and change because their products are so connected that they actively work worse with other companies, which is understandable for why they created it that way, but it is now causing problems where they have to change it. And also, lastly, they have been facing supply chain disruptions as most of their manufacturing occurs in China and Taiwan, and there is constantly and perpetually tensions between China and the USA, especially with the tariffs that were trying to be enacted between the US and a lot of other countries, and those types of things can affect the market. And it's why Apple needs to diversify their product list even more. Apple also does have a very specific market situation it's in. So, to first review, the market situations, as some examples that Apple could have been, are a monopoly, or hyper-competitive, it is an oligopoly. So a monopoly is a company that has exclusive power over a market that controls the prices and can easily exclude competition. Apple cannot completely control the prices nor completely exclude the competition, and even has direct competition with multiple other large companies that still have a large percentage of the smartphone market, such as Samsung. Apple has about 27.68%, whereas Samsung had about 20.66% of the smartphone market, like that they sold. Apple could also be in a hyper-competitive market that is volatile with frequent changes, that moves, especially because we now have a digital market and that changes a lot of things. However, that is still not the market that Apple is competing in. They are still an oligopoly. They are one of the few bigger companies, and they do have an effect on the market, but they do not control prices. They are not the only option, and they cannot completely exclude competitors. There's even smaller companies that are still up and coming, especially in countries that are not America. Because in America, Apple, Samsung, and Google tend to be the biggest ones. However, in some other countries, we see Motorola, Huawei, and Xiaomi making an impact on the smartphone market. Apple also has to deal with some of the impacts from that we see in the Porter's Five Forces model, such as competition. They do have competition with other large companies worldwide. And there's constantly new competition in multiple different markets being made because Apple is not solely in the smartphone market. That's just one of their biggest markets. They are also in the computer market, the Apple Watch, the fitness market, the services market. They have TVs, they have iPads, they have so many other products that they have so much competition with that they have to try to still have good products. They can't simply just release something and it just to be Apple and that just be good enough. There is something about their products that they need to have. However, they don't have to worry as much about new entrants. The most they've had to worry about is AI becoming popular and how they're handling their Apple Intelligence. However, in terms of just new products, there has been no new product that has overtaken Apple in the smartphone field, and that is their main moneymaker. So long as they continue with that, they will be able to survive. However, the bargaining power buyers is something that Apple needs to focus on because their products are so expensive and that is how they make their money. I know I've said that multiple times, but it's important to reiterate here because if they didn't have redeeming qualities about their products, that would be a reason for buyers to not buy them. Much like with Google, we see that they're just less popular than Apple. It's not a status symbol in the same way. That's another reason buyers will buy them. It's all about what they can offer to the buyers and not receive backlash for. The suppliers is also something that they're having to struggle with because their main supplier is China, and there's constantly political relationship factors between countries that are going to affect this perpetually. There's also the threat of substitutes, and there are very strong substitutes that can be picked from within the market. There's, like I mentioned, Samsung, Google, Motorola, and any new upcoming phone company. Nokia was one that was around for a very long time, but they are not quite as popular as Apple. They're usually at about the same performance of Apple products at a lower price. However, they tend to not have as many accessories, which is another reason why people stick with Apple, and it's easier to not have to worry about the threat of substitutes as much. So Apple is just a very attractive industry for this reason because there is a lot of profit here. They're a company that's been around a long time. They're still continuously being innovative and they are making good choices to make their investors money. So in the BCG matrix, there's a lot of different types of strategies a company can use. They can try to make new products. They can have things that are popular but then go back to being really bad moneymakers. They can also have cash cows that are successful but slower projects. And then they can also have stars, which are faster moving projects that are also expensive and effective at making the money, usually. So with Apple, they use the star and cash cow. Hence, I've called them expensive because that is how they make their money. It's a good product, it's popular, it's expensive. That's their star. Their smartphone, their Apple Watches, their iPads. Those are the things that they're going to use to take that money to reinvest into making more accessories and more differentiated products and expanding their playing field. While these products haven't reached the top in these fields yet, they can because they can continue making the money to justify their products to make them better. Some, especially in recent years, have argued that their products aren't necessarily getting better, but it still matters. Once again, just to reiterate, Apple is a very popular company that uses their popularity to promote their products, to get people to buy them, to reinvest them into making new accessories to go along with their iPhone that tends to work best and recently only really with their iPhones, so that they can have a cycle so that they can continue to have customers come in and buy their products. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I hope that you enjoyed it and I hope that you did learn or at least heard some interesting facts about Apple. And I hope, thank you very much for tuning in.